Welcome back to another episode of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast, powered by ISOFIT and Firefly Recovery. ISOFIT is my go-to for all things isometric strength training. For more on ISOFIT, be sure to check out isofit.com. Episodes like this are made possible by Firefly, the official recovery provider of the Braun Performance and Rehab Podcast. For more on Firefly, be sure to check out recoveryfirefly.com. This episode is powered by Dr. Ray Gorman, founder of Engage Movement. Learn how to boost your income without relying on sessions. Get a free training on the blended practice model by following at Ray Gorman DPT on Instagram. Joining me on the podcast today is Cooper Johnston. Cooper and I are going to be diving into his experiences as an athlete, in particular in relation to his ACL rehab recovery. As you'll learn in this episode, Cooper is an absolute stud, phenomenal individual. I really appreciate his time and the insights he shared with us going through his rehab journey. Enjoy. Cooper, welcome to the podcast. Super excited to work with you today, man. Obviously, we've known each other for quite some time, going on 3 years now, which is just insane for me to think about. For people who maybe aren't familiar with you and your journey that way, would you mind filling them in a little bit about who you are and all that you've been through over the last few years, dude?
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up in Salisbury, played soccer, baseball my whole life. Kind of chose a path in high school to pursue soccer. Played with the club team over the bridge, Maryland United. Played some of the ODP, like youth national team stuff, and really was pursuing playing soccer in college. Went through a lot of injuries along my way, ankle, hip, pretty much anything you can call. And then kind of the big one right before I was about to go play college soccer, I tore my ACL, meniscus, and kind of really did my whole knee. Took a gap year, eventually got recruited by South Carolina to play soccer. So played for the Gamecocks for some time. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too at this point.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, dude. That ACL thing continues to come up on the podcast over and over again, and it's something I never hear anything good about that way, unfortunately. It's way too common, in my opinion. We see it impacting athletes, every single year. Thousands and thousands of athletes face this injury, are forced to overcome it, and it's a dogfight. There's good days, there's bad days. It's a long journey. It forces you to change your plans, kind of like you mentioned. You had to take a gap year and kind of think outside the box with how you were going to proceed forward. It just throws a wrench in everything, for lack of a better way to put it. I'd love to hear more about your story because obviously I came in a little bit late. I didn't get to work with you, day one or week one per se. I'm fortunate for the opportunity to work with you towards the end stage of that and make sure you were feeling good and confident with everything that you're doing. But, I didn't get the full picture with you that way. So for people who, are curious that way, how exactly did you end up injuring your knee? What was that process look like? And what were all the details that went into it, man?
Yeah, so definitely difficult injury. Was not expecting it at first. So I was playing a tournament in North Carolina with my club team, Maryland United, and kind of just a early morning game, like up at like 6 o'clock playing. It was like the last day. So it was an important game, but at the same time, it was just like a showcase. Not too many coaches because it was an early game, and went in for a tackle and knee kind of just completely snapped. At first, couldn't move, couldn't walk, was really confused, felt like a very weird pop and kind of pain in the knee, nothing I'd ever felt before. And obviously at first I was like, what the heck just happened? And kind of like hobbled off the field and got checked out by a trainer there. And they told me just like a little tweak, I'd be fine in the morning. I was not fine in the morning. I couldn't walk, nothing was going well. And then that's when I kind of came home, got it checked out, was hoping it wouldn't be too serious, obviously, because I was about to go play college soccer, and got like my MRI results back, and they told me it was kind of everything in the knee, the ACL, MCL meniscus, and I kind of just lost it. I mean, there was not much going through my head other than like, how could this happen? Like all the hard work you put in to accomplish a goal, especially trying to play a Division I sport or just any college level sport, and it all can kind of just go like in a snap of a finger. And that was like a difficult moment for me mentally and physically, obviously. And I got in surgery pretty quickly once I decided I was going to take the gap year. And my surgeon kind of told me I probably wouldn't come back from it. I probably wouldn't play again, but I tend not to listen to things like that. And I came back and made it work out. But yeah, the recovery in the beginning was difficult. There's really nothing you can do. It's just pain, just sitting and having your leg propped up, and there's really like no stretches, no movement, not much of anything you can do in the beginning because all you're worried about is what's going to make me hurt and what's not going to make me hurt. And I guess after that like original like 2 week phase of just like hurting kind of went by, that's like immediately when you have to start jumping on it and being proactive and moving as much as you can. And even like the stretches, the little ones that maybe like your PT would give you for the first few months before you start walking and you start jogging, like leg lifts or like deflection and just flexing your leg. Like I was doing those 1,000 times a day. Like any second that I could do it, I was doing them. And I think it's those small things that kind of stack up over. It's a long recovery. It's like a 9 to 12 months. It's those little things in the beginning, I think, that really like give you such an advantage. And I kind of once I started walking and like running, I picked up it was the like the shock pads. I started working with a company that specialized in that, and I think that really helped me in the long term when I started like stimming my muscles. It's when I actually started seeing some muscle growth, and I started getting back to a little bit of the strength that I had before and started to actually progress, and was in and out of PT and athlete academy trying to kind of just find like my person that would, I guess, push me through everything. And that's when I found you, when I was kind of coming in on the back end where I really needed to make my return and my like, I guess, presence known, as in coming back and being better than I was before. And that's kind of when we started working together, and that really pushed me through to the final stage of like actually coming back to sport play and actually being able to be at a level that I was at before I had gotten hurt.
Dude, you dropped some absolute gold in that. So huge props to you. First off, running it back here, I hear so many times from athletes when they have an acute knee injury like this, they get checked out by someone. And this is not to at them by any means, because everyone makes mistakes. I fall short all the time, but it's not the kind of place that we can stay at, right? It's okay to make a mistake, but don't stay there. Learn from it and move on. And yet, for some reason, I hear a lot of athletes who unfortunately injure their ACL end up in the ER, or they get checked out by someone acutely and they get told it's nothing serious, right? Oh, it's just, your kneecap dislocated or shifted, or, you'll be fine tomorrow, whatever it is that way. And I'm not sure what it is or what goes into that. I don't do a whole lot of acute event coverage myself by any means, but I think we have to be more comfortable and confident with looking at people and saying, like, hey, look, this doesn't seem good, right? Like the sooner we start with telling them what's going on, the more time they're going to have to process the whole thing. Because as you mentioned, it's a lot to take in. It kind of disrupts your plans. It makes you shift everything acutely, like immediately, everything stops, everything shifts. And as soon as someone hears the word ACL, they know what that means, right? It's not like a shoulder labrum that we have to sit down and explain. It's like people hear ACL and they're like, oh, I know exactly what that means. I know what I'm going to have to go through, right? It's pretty commonly known. So it's one of those things that I wish when athletes do go down with acute things, especially in the knee, and when it doesn't look good, I wish we were a little bit more upfront and honest with them from the start about like, hey, look, this might not be a good situation, but here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to start planning and preparing for that. And then obviously, the other piece you brought up is this kind of like grieving process that athletes go through after an injury right that right first I feel like a lot of athletes start denying it, like, oh, this shouldn't happen to me, it can't be happening to me, it's me, of course it's not going to be me. But then it happens to you and you're like, well, shoot, now what? And there's a lot of emotion around that, anger, sadness. And I mean, I've seen it all. I've seen athletes come in day one crying. I've seen them pissed off at the world. I've seen them sometimes in like decent moods where they've like accepted what's going to happen and they're at least like finding peace in the fact that there's a plan to get them back to where they want to go, and they've accepted that, it's going to be a long road, but they'll get there. But it's a lot to take in. And it's something that I wish the athlete rehab model for individuals facing injuries like this was a little bit more holistic, right? We call it physical therapy, but a lot of the time I feel like what we do is not all exclusively physical in nature, right? Sometimes it's more of how do we help this person become more confident? How do we get them to trust their knee again? And yes, we might do that through exercise or stuff with our hands, but it's not necessarily just as simple as building a bigger muscle or making it put out more force so you can move more weight. It's a lot more multifaceted than that, I'll say. And the other piece that you mentioned is something else I hear from a lot of people, and that's where I meet a lot of athletes is they trial the initial PT and they do their straight leg raises. They start walking again, and then they feel like there's a disconnect between them starting to do day-to-day life things and them getting back to sport. And then on top of that, some athletes will get back to sport, but they're not at the level of performance that they want to be at. So they've returned to sport, but they've not yet returned to performance. And those two continuums are spots that I wish people would pay more attention to and help athletes with more, because obviously you do a lot more on the soccer pitch than the typical person just walking around in the day-to-day does. There's a lot more demands that go along with that. The sport is very unique. You have to cut and pivot over and over again, which obviously tends to kind of go along with the mechanism of injury for these tears. So we have to take this block of time that we have and use that as prep to get you back to sport. And then once you're back, we have to troubleshoot all the things that are keeping you from playing at the level that you want to be at. Because I don't think that we should stop and settle for good enough. I don't think we should stop and settle for, well, they got back to sport, that's all we can do. I think we really need to push the envelope a little bit more. And I think we need to help people get back to their desired level of performance. And obviously, if you're able to face a pretty bad knee injury, right? You got your money's worth, right? You knocked out
Yeah.
ACL, MCL, meniscus all in one go, but you're still able to get to the point where D1 programs, not only D1 programs, but SEC D1 programs are looking at you and saying, hey, look, we want to offer you a shot to join our team. We want to offer you a spot on our team. That's something that most people don't get to do, but I wish that was the standard. I wish everyone had that kind of success in their rehab. And obviously, you worked like a dog to freaking get there, but that's what I wish the standard was, that all of these boxes were checked and that the outcome was what you want it to be instead of what we kind of fall into a lot of the times, if you will.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think everyone views like injuries as like, oh, this is a this horrible, like negative, pessimistic thing. And yeah, it is, but at the end of the day, I think it always leads to something better and it always happens for a reason. And I think if we started kind of looking at injuries like say someone tears their ACL and you just say like good, like it's gonna get me to somewhere else that I may not have seen before. And if we started like kind of phrasing it as like this injury is going to make me better than I was before, rather than just getting back to a level or just getting back to walking or just getting back to just like running now. If we were like, all right, this is going to make me a better player than I was before because I'm going to take this time. Obviously, I'm going to build up my knee again, but I'm also going to get better on the parts that I didn't have before that I never really had time, like watching film or kind of like looking at the smaller parts of your game that you don't really see when you're all in the hectic and like in the mess of things that you can really take a step back and look at while you have this time to recover and like really take it from a bird's eye point of view.
Obviously, that's a super mature way to look at things. But a lot of athletes I talk with have a hard time adopting that mindset in the moment because, again, you're overwhelmed with emotion and the shock of the whole situation that way. How do you feel you went about adopting that mindset of, you know what? Hey, this is an awful, terrible thing that happened to me. It's going to be a long, grueling road, but you know what? I'm going to find the good in this. How did you train yourself to see the brighter side of gray with this?
Yeah, obviously, I mean it's not easy, and also I think a person's past probably helps. I had been through injuries before, like longer injuries. I knew how to deal with the ups and downs kind of and how to come out on the greater side of things. But I mean, the ACL was not like anything I had faced before, and it was definitely different in a sense. And I guess my motivation that like I always had was kind of being from a small town with not as much opportunity, and how much work I had already put in, and kind of just the thought of all that going to like to nothing drove me absolutely insane. And it kind of made me a psychopath in terms of coming out and not listening to anyone and like making my own of the situation. And then, I mean, also like everyone has their own type of motivation, whether it's videos or it's a person in their life that they're doing it for, or it's something like internally that they're doing it for. Everyone has like that kind of like motivation. And for me also, it was just like watching like videos of people who had kind of had success stories and being like if they can do it, like why not me, kind of, and just like building that like strong mindset and starting to like meditate and starting to do things that I never would do before to make me stronger mentally, kind of just it just turned me into like an animal in terms of making sure that I came out on the better side of things, and making sure that like I wasn't going to take no for an answer, kind of.
Right, exactly. It's like life threw an obstacle in your path and you decide to blow right through the freaking thing and make the obstacle your path forward, if you will. And I think that's just a very difficult way of thinking to develop. But once you develop it, again, it's one of those things that's so powerful and impactful, and it has influences in your life beyond what the rehab is there for, right? Oh, we're going to do a physical rehab. We're going to get you back to sport, blah, blah, blah. But you end up learning a lot more about life through that process. You end up picking up lessons that you wouldn't get anywhere else, right? That's one of the reasons I personally love to work with athletes is I feel like sport teaches you things that you're not going to get in the confines of a classroom. And the same thing is true from these rehab processes. Yes, they're long. Yes, they're challenging. Yes, there's a lot of obstacles that you have to overcome. But like we just said, the obstacle in your path sometimes becomes the way forward. And, unfortunately, life doesn't necessarily get easier long term. It only gets more challenging. It only throws new obstacles that you've never faced before at you, right? Like the ACL. You had faced injury before, but nothing quite like this. Well, guess what? You responded exceptionally well. You overcame that thing in your path. And now when life throws you more curveballs, you're going to look back and you're going to say, you know what? I overcame this. I put all this time in, I put all this work in, I put all this effort in, and I didn't settle. I didn't, stop and take the, word that my surgeon gave me of, oh, well, you're never going to be back as like word of law. You found a way to challenge that, switch up the mainframe, and prove a lot of people wrong. And I think that's the kind of thing, if you can get that from your ACL rehab, again, a lot of people I talk with tell me it's a very transformative time for them. And it's one of those things that I don't think I fully understand. I hope I never have to go through this myself. I've never gone through it thus far. But a lot of people tell me after they've gotten through it that they're thankful that it happened to them. Obviously, they wouldn't want to do it again, but they find that they take away so much from this recovery and so much from this process. And I think, again, it speaks volumes to the power and impact you can have as a coach or clinician on the people that you work with day in and day out, if and only if you put them first and you put them at the forefront, right? It's not as simple as put them on the same cookie cutter program as everyone else. It's not the same as 3 sets of 10 everything. It's how do you treat them as a person? How do you provide for their specific needs? And how do you reverse engineer a plan to take them from where they want to get to, from where they are today to where they want to get to? But
No, yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think that's like one of the greatest reasons why I like what you do so much, and why I wanted to like kind of choose you to move forward with, was because all the other PTs that I had kind of worked with were great. They nothing wrong, but there was definitely this cookie cutter approach, and it was also more of like a constraint of like what you could be capable of. And I felt like with you, it was a very personalized approach, and there was no like hold or stop. You never made it like there was a limit, and you never like told me like I couldn't do something, and you kind of saw the vision, and you were going to help me do whatever I needed to do to get to that vision. And I think that should definitely be encouraged in all types of, or in any forms now of PT, is like just having that personal approach, but also like not setting any like boundaries or limits of what you can and cannot accomplish.
What advice do you have for athletes who are trying to go through the process of choosing their surgeon and choosing their rehab providers that way? What kind of things do you feel like stuck out really, really, exceptional to you on that process of selecting who your team is going to be? And what advice do you have for others who are currently looking to kind of build their own team, right? Maybe they just got the news that they unfortunately tore their ACL. They're starting the process of who's my PT going to be? Who's my surgeon going to be? Am I going to work with a strength coach? If so, who's that going to be? What kind of things do you feel like set the people that you surrounded yourself with and chose to move forward with apart from everyone else?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not an easy process. Um, it also depends on obviously the level that you're at and where you are in terms of long-term goals with sports or whatever your long-term goals may be if that's outside of sports. But I think obviously it starts with a surgeon. Depending on what the surgeon's goal is for you, usually that will kind of dictate, I feel, what your path looks like. Usually they work with a certain team of PTs that communicate with them. And I feel like that is a huge part of dictating it. But I went over the bridge, so I went pretty far for my surgery with Dr. Curl. She's amazing. Raven's surgeon. She did great. And she, as she did like kind of have like it'd be hard to get back from this. Like she's seen people do it before. And I mean, she at the same time was like, you go for it. Like you do, she was going to do her part and I was going to do my part. And kind of, I think the most important part is finding a team that aligns like with your vision. Like if you want to be proactive and you want to come back better than you were before, like find a group of people that are like, okay, we'll get you there. Not a group of people that are like, all right, like we'll get you running again and we'll just see what happens. Like find that group of people that kind of aligns with your mindset and kind of that can feed into that like desire and help push you. It's important to have a group of people push you because you're really on your own during a lot of this process, and a lot of it's a mental battle. And any external help that you can get outside of just like your internal motivation, I mean, that just helps you so much more in the long run. So I would say find a group of people that go along with your vision, and find a group of people that can really push you and get you to that next level that you need to be at.
Quick break, because if you're a rehab professional sick of burnout, this could be your answer. Engage Movement's blended practice model is a proven system built by Dr. Ray Gorman, a PT who walked away from the 55-hour-a-week grind and built a blended practice model that doubled his income while working less than 25 hours a week, and he didn't have to rely on the traditional way of selling sessions to do so. It's all about blending remote and in-person services, stacking monthly recurring revenue, and building a business that finally supports your life, not the other way around. This model isn't just theory. Real providers, including myself, are creating lives of freedom and flexibility without being tied to their schedule. And as a listener, you get free access to the complete training. DM my name, Dan, to @RayGormanDPT on Instagram and receive your free breakdown on the model. Absolutely. Take the time and make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people and almost like interview the people that you work with a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, right? Like, if you walk into the surgeon's office and they're in and out of the door in 30 seconds and they, for whatever reason, just don't have time for you, like,
Mm-hmm.
I get it, everyone's busy, but also, again, we need to humanize this whole process a little bit more. And I think we need to put a little bit more time and effort into the work that we get with athletes, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
why I started doing podcast episodes like this way back in the fall, and we've worked with countless athletes since then, right? It's a matter of how do we humanize this process? How do we try and understand what it is you're currently going through, what it is you're currently facing, and how can we as providers, as coaches, as clinicians, how can we work for you to make sure that you get the outcome that you're after? Because as the stats and the literature will tell you, right, a simple Google search will show you a lot of people don't get the outcomes that they want to get after these procedures. And it's really unfortunate, but it's one of those things that, going back to what we talked about before, failure is okay, but stopping when you've fallen short is not okay. You have to find ways to continue to push forward, continue to challenge and shake up the mainframe, and find new ways to overcome those different obstacles that get thrown in your path, right? And I think the more you're committed to that lifelong growth mindset, the better off you're going to be, again, from the athlete perspective, but also as a coach or clinician or whoever that is working, with that athlete that way. I think the other piece too is looking at this as an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity for us to work together. It's an opportunity for us to be a team. It's an opportunity for us to help you get what you're after. It's not so much of a like ego-driven show. It's not about the social media likes or comments or whatever it is that way. At the end of the day, it's about, again, humanizing the approach and having the opportunity to help other people get to that higher ground that they're after that way. And I think the more you embody that, the better off you're going to be throughout your career, right? High
Mhm.
respect, low ego. I've been saying it a lot lately, but it
Yeah.
holds true at the end of the day. The other piece, too, obviously, you worked with a phenomenal strength and conditioning group that way. What role did they play along that whole process? Because one of the things I always advocate for, especially when I'm traveling and speaking to people that way, is I want strength coaches involved in the return to sport process. I don't think any one person, including myself, can do all the work, right? It takes a team, it
Mhm.
takes a village. So tell me a little bit more about your strength and conditioning influencing your rehab process, man.
Yeah, Athlete Academy. I I've been going to Athlete Academy since I was in fifth grade, maybe. I don't know, probably 10, 12 years. And I mean, those are the best people, I mean, ever, not just in terms of helping me perform physically, but also just people to be close with. There really is like a family there. And I mean, I always had times where I questioned like I'm going to the gym so much. I'm going through all these great programs and like I'm really improving, but I'm still getting hurt. And it took me a while until I got to the ACL to realize that like it didn't have to do just with the strengthening stuff. There's so much outside of that kind of plays into it. Like for me, a big thing was sleep. Like I was not sleeping much because I was traveling a lot for soccer. And I think that's really what caught up to me because I wasn't recovering properly. And that's why I had so many injuries. And every single time I had an injury, Athlete Academy had, whether it was I was in a boot and I was doing overhead presses and working on my upper body, like I was always proactive. There's always something I was doing, even if it wasn't exactly targeting like the spot where I was injured, but I was always doing something to get better in some fashion. And I really appreciated like kind of the mindset that they had that like you're never like down and out. Like both my legs could fall off and I could be in there tomorrow, probably benching with Cody or Bravo, like working on working on my upper body, like in some fashion. And I think it's important to have like that mindset with it in terms of the strength phase that like there's always an area to work on. There's always an area to get better no matter where your injury may be. And that's kind of like the beginning stage of it when I couldn't do much, right? Because I had this huge brace on my leg. I could barely move around. I was on crutches and I was doing a lot of upper body, like in core and stability, mobilization stuff. And I guess moving past that, kind of once I started to actually be able to do like somewhat of a lifting program, definitely like some progressive overload stuff where I'm just constantly pushing my numbers, pushing my weights and getting stronger and like visibly being able to see that, which I could see with their programs was so helpful to me because it gives you like that motivation to keep going. It's like, all right, like I'm seeing a difference, I'm seeing a change, what I'm doing is working. Like I need to keep doing it and I need to keep doing it harder and harder and harder. And that really helped me get to like my final stage of being back to where I was before and trying to push to the next level because my program had just expanded and improved so much that it was like, all right, I'm back to the level I was before. Now let's like push the envelope. Let's get past like those numbers that I had before I was injured and let's try to like create something new and create something better and something to work off of moving forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's always a way forward, right? It's one of those things that I think reframing the mindset from what we can't do to what we can do, right? Again, the brighter side of gray, if you will, and focusing on all the opportunities we have instead of what we're missing out on. I think the more you
Mm-hmm.
buy into that mindset shift, the better off you're going to be. And obviously, you mentioned that key term progressive overload. I love that you know that. It's like the more we push that needle forward, the better off we're going to be. And obviously, the other piece you mentioned, sleep, right? Like I think injury, unfortunate as it might be, can serve as a great opportunity for athletes to kind of do a little bit of like a internal check or a internal audit, if you will, where they step back and look at their habits, look at what they've had going on and recognize, hey, look, these are some places I might not be doing as good as I could. These are some places I could be doing a little bit more, doing a little bit better. And I think that process of never-ending, relentless self-improvement, again, can set you up for success in the rehab, but also beyond that into life as well that way. Obviously, no one is ever really wishing for this to happen. It's a very unfortunate situation, as we've talked about. And it's one of those things that, again, as unfortunate as it is, you can still come out on top that way. Is there any other advice that you have for athletes who might be facing a knee ACL type injury right now, who are looking at it, wondering, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to come out on top outside of surrounding themselves with the right people? What else goes into this, right? What role did your family play? What role did your support systems play, your friends, and so on that way? How
Mhm.
else do you surround yourself with this team of great people that are there to build you up beyond just picking the right surgeon and picking the right PT and strength coach? Because obviously, all of us are more than happy to work with you, right? We're getting
Mhm.
paid to do so. It takes
Yeah.
an extra special kind of person who's willing to walk you through that entire time without asking for anything in return.
The biggest thing for me was faith, getting stronger and my faith and understanding that everything happened for a reason. And that kind of gave me, I guess, the courage and the strength in the beginning, that first like week or two of like, this is horrible. Like that was what was like, all right, I'm gonna do something about this. And I think that's the groundwork where you have to start, and everything else kind of falls into place in terms of family and the friends and relationships that you had built kind of before you were hurt. I guess that all kind of shows itself. It's not as much of like making new like people or friends relationships. It kind of like shows you when you're hurt, like who are the ones that you should probably keep around after you were hurt, and like the ones who encourage you on like a Friday night when you're like, here, you're kind of getting better, you can walk now, and like you want to go out and like do something fun, but they're like, no, like go to your stretches, or like go to the gym, or get your sleep, like actually recover. It's like the people who are like in your corner and want to do that with you. And like, or when you're like going back to training and you can't do much, right? You can only do like light touches, and like people probably don't really want to go out for an hour and a half and like the sun and train, like just doing like stuff at like a grandpa's pace. But like it's the people like that that want to come and do the hard part for them, that like are the ones you want to keep around, like ones that are just willing to do whatever to help you improve and help you get better, and like also you reciprocating that and like being there for them. And another big part for me was that even though I couldn't like fully train at times or like be performing, like a lot of my friends that were still training for college and trying to like get ready to play at the next level, like going out and helping them, and just like seeing that drive and passion in other people too, it just like ignites it in you. And surrounding yourself by people that want to be where you are, or that you want to be like where they are in life, like I think that's the most important part. Like only let like certain things come into your life that will get you to where you want to be in life, and only let people in your life that are at places you want to be in life. I feel like as long as you let in the right people, like everything else will take care of itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. That concept of that inner circle, if you will, right? Keeping the
Mm-hmm.
right people close to you that way. I think that's absolutely essential. And as you mentioned too, right? Like you can't go through life with the catcher's mitt in both hands. You have to learn how to throw things back and give back to other people, right? There are
Mm-hmm.
plenty of people who are going to be willing to help you in the times that you need it. However, it's being able to turn around later on and give something back to them. And you also mentioned the faith component as well. That's something that came up when I was talking with Kajana about his own ACL recovery that way, right? That was a very big influential thing for him. And I think there's that concept of this ACL rehab process that carries over very strongly to that faith element, right? Like faith is believing in things that you can't physically see. It's going to happen, but you can't physically see it. You can't necessarily put it into worldly terms, if you will. The same thing, in my mind, is true in relation to the ACL rehab, right? You might not be able to see that dream outcome day one. You might not be able to think about what it's going to be like to return playing your sport better than you ever have when you're not
Mm-hmm.
even walking. But that doesn't mean you're not going to get there. You have to cling to that belief of things that you can't physically see, but know that they will happen.
Yeah. And then one more point that I have to touch on that is, like I said, like doing it, being as proactive as possible is good, right? Like whenever you have a chance to do, whether it's like something, even like a simple thing like a leg lift, like an exercise of building strength or training anything, like obviously do it as much as you can. But another big part for me was picking up other things that I could be passionate about, because obviously if you do too much, you can hurt yourself. Like that's true. That does happen. You can set yourself back. But um, I picked up like investing in golf, and those were things that kind of like after I put in all my work, like training and my PT and my recovery, like I would go and do those things and kind of just release, and I would be able to like be passionate and be focused on other things. So like I actually had time away from like constantly doing like training or stretching or recovering or something, because I think if I was doing that like 100% all the time, I would eventually hurt myself. So I also would like encourage people that are going through it to like try and pick up something new that can kind of just like put you in a good spot mentally that you can enjoy and like not worry about anything else with.
You mean you can have a life outside of sport? Really?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
you can.
crazy, right?
I've figured that out that you can now, actually. Yeah.
And what's also really interesting to me in particular is it sounds like those other things helped shape your path forward now in modern
100%.
times, right? Because the last time I was chatting with you, it sounds like the financial world is where you're heading next, right? You're ready to take over Wall Street, from my understanding.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely something that's popped up and been prominent in college for me outside of soccer. Something that I was into while I was hurting. It's also like just it could be something that helps you out later in life if sports aren't there, because eventually sports won't be there. It's just a reality. Like everyone hits an age limit. You can't play until you're 100 years old. There will be a time where you have to move past it and you have to have other passions and other things that you want to do in life. So I think being able to find that at kind of a young age is probably one of the biggest blessings out of
How,
all of this.
how do you cope with that process of knowing that sport will end and it might not end in the exact fashion that you expect it to? How do you cope with that process or, you know, make peace with that process of sport ending, but it might not be ending on the terms that you initially set?
Yeah, it's not easy. I don't even think I'm anywhere close to making peace with the fact that I will be done playing soccer forever eventually. Obviously, I think you don't just fully cut everything off. I think you have to like slowly like wean it down until you're at the point where you're like, okay, like I have other things going on. Like I can live with the fact that I was once here, and like this was and probably will ever like forever be one of my greatest passions. But you have to get to that point where you're like, okay, like I want to get passionate about this now. I want to be just as good as I was at this one thing that I once had, but like and put all that energy and effort into this new thing. And I think you have to have something else, like a different channel, one or two or even like three different channels to be able to actually make that transition. But once again, like you'll never just get away fully from, I guess, sports. If you were really like that serious about it and it was that big of a part of your life, it will always be a part of your life. It never will go away, and it will translate into everything you do moving forward in ways that you
Absolutely.
probably won't know.
I think that's something that I see very strongly with you as well, as I don't think you're ever gonna like lose sight of soccer. I think you're always gonna be involved in it, whether that be coaching or playing or I don't know, maybe even refereeing as a side hustle. I mean, I feel like people don't usually say good things about referees and officials, but who knows? You might be that guy. And I think that that's something that is so essential for athletes to remember is just because the involvement you have in sport looks different than it used to doesn't mean that that phase of your life is over forever, right? There's other ways to get involved. There's other ways to have an impact. There's other ways to grow the game and give back to the sport that ends up shaping a lot of who you become over time that way. And I think that the more we frame that conversation around, hey, it might be the end of the competitive playing career, but it's not the end of your involvement in the sport, the better off it goes for everyone. Cooper, I realize we can probably talk about this stuff all day long, dude. I mean, you are a phenomenal individual doing incredible work both in the financial and academic side of things, but also as a person and in life in general. For people who want to find out more about you online or wherever that way, where can they find you at, dude? Do you have like a little TikTok channel or something like that? Instagram.
I've got an Instagram. My Instagram's Cooper Johnston 11, and then I've also got a LinkedIn. If you wanna
Dude,
if
we
you wanna
love
follow the
LinkedIn. We
financial
love
financial side of
LinkedIn.
things, you
We
just look up
love
my name,
LinkedIn. Yeah,
Cooper
no.
Johnston, and you'll figure everything out.
I'll have to be giving you my investment portfolio to run and manage here very soon because it's one of those things that you seem like you have such a level of dedication, commitment, and just overall drive to everything that you do that you're going to be highly successful in whatever you do in life. Again, whether that be from a work standpoint or from an academic standpoint or an athletic standpoint. So, really excited to see where you go in the future and really, really appreciate your time and all the insights that you shared with us today, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the words. It means a lot, and I also appreciate everything you've done for me over the past few years. I definitely would not be where I am today without you.